Now, as you would have heard during most part of today, an unidentified witness at the state capture inquiry, she's been named Ms. K, has confirmed that there were attempts to sabotage Project Veza, aimed at investigating maladministration at the State Security Agency. Ms. K further confirmed Mr. Y's evidence that SSA money was used to sponsor factional battles within the ruling party, the African National Congress. But for more on the story, joining us now is our senior reporter, Tumaole Mohlaoli. Tumaole, a continuation once again on the mechanisms within the State Security Agency. Tell us a little bit more about Project Veza.
Well, Project Veza, according to Ms. K, was set up just to investigate just how deep and how how far the rot had set in the SSA, just trying to uncover just why the SSA was so involved in in activities rather that it was not supposed to be involved in. We had heard from Mr. Jafta yesterday, who took to the stand, that of course operatives were involved in operations to rather spy on political players within the country, and then moving away from their mandate of state security. Now, it's very interesting because Ms. K went on to elaborate as to how this was done, going so far as to say that monies were used to bus, supporters of one faction within the ANC to go and picket outside Luthuli House. Let's hear. We've got a bite where she actually details that.
I cannot wholly confirm this assertion, save for one instance, which I don't know whether it's political interference, but what I could gather from one of the implicated individuals during an interview was them admitting to taking money to fund the Protect Luthuli House campaign. That she indicated that the money was used to bus in people from KZN who were purported to be MKVA members, and the SSA paid for their accommodation, food and transportation. So as for the rest, I don't have the evidence, because the investigation itself and the conclusions thereof are based on evidence, things that I could analyze and actually gather, and as well as the team, in terms of analysis and evidence that we could actually analyze. Yeah.
So, Tumaole, any clarity as to exactly when Operation Veza was put in place?
Well, Operation Veza would have been running in a period from just around 2014 to around 2017, 2018. So these would have been in the years that this particular operation would have been underway to try and find out exactly what was going on within the state security apparatus. And various allegations and various revelations, rather, were made both by Sidney Mufamadi and also by Mr. Jafta yesterday, just detailing in terms of looking at what was going on in the politicization and weaponization. They used words like weaponization of the state security apparatus to spy on the citizenry and to be involved within party factional battles. Now, we will also look at which heads in terms of the political oversight were implicated. Ms. K names a few ministers and details who was in charge of the spooks at the time when this was going on.
At an executive level, the abuse of the SSA in its mandate occurred primarily under the political leadership of Ministers Siyabonga, Cele, David Mahlobo, and Advocate Bongani Bongo, and was executed or implemented primarily, although not exclusively, by Mr. Moruti Nosi, Ambassador Thulani Dlomo, Ambassador Sonto Kujo, and Mr. Alpha Fraser.
But we also heard Ms. K talking about the level of intimidation that they received, the operatives of operation of Project Veza. Talk to us more about that.
Yes, and this is part of the reason why, of course, her testimony is also being given in camera, because of the level of intimidation and the level of fear that has gone through. She's detailed in terms of, receiving things like death threats, knowing that certain operatives who wanted to come forward and wanted to, push back against what was happening. It's not like the entire intelligence community was co-opted into going in with the flow, so to speak, and being involved in illegal activities. There were those who tried to resist, but there was certain intimidation. And knowing how the intelligence community works and how certain underhanded dealings were going on at the time, there was that atmosphere of fear, and certain people were reached to directly and told that if you participate with certain investigation, whether it was Operation Veza, whether it was giving testimony before Parliament and the various instruments that were set up to investigate the rot, Mr. Sidney Mufamadi was in charge of one of those, and those who decided to come forward, whether they were protected or not, still people managed to reach to them to try and suggest that it's not the way to go. So it just shows the extent to which those who were involved in undue processes were willing to go to protect and hide their illegal activities, so to speak.
And what is the status quo right now, Tumaole, regarding those who were somehow found to have been implicated in the rot at the State Security Agency?
Well, what is happening right now is that there are various investigations looking into what had happened, and the Commission of Inquiry is one of those platforms that, of course, will be revealing more. And then decisions have to be taken as to what will happen in terms of the legal processes, of course, in terms of who did what and whether the evidence can be tested in a court of law. Of course, the Commission of Inquiry is an investigative and a probing instrument, and it will make recommendations. And some of those recommendations may be quite damning when the evidence that has been led is, of course, given forward to the various law enforcement agencies that are tasked like the NPA with looking as to whether the evidence can be tested in a court of law. And then, of course, we do know that the Commission of Inquiry does give the opportunity for those who have been implicated to come forward and state their case. We know earlier in the morning when the lawyers representing the State Security Minister were arguing very vehemently, saying that people might be outed and they were concerned about what the implications thereof might be. That was their way of saying that these allegations and some of these revelations might implicate people, and there might be consequences there too. These consequences will then have to be followed up, and we will wait to see exactly what actions will be taken. Whether, of course, the law enforcement agencies look at this evidence and think, well, we might go forward and then prosecute, and what steps will be taken. We know that, of course, we've seen before with the Commission of Inquiry just last year when it was looking at another stream of evidence into the asbestos matter in the Free State housing and corruption. We know that those who were implicated therein, there were various investigations looking at that, but because of revelations that came out of the Commission of Inquiry, they are now before the court of law and expected to face the full might of the law.
And there was an interaction between the Deputy Chief Justice and Ms. K at some point regarding the names that have already been released. And it sounded like there are other names as well, other ministers who were implicated and yet at this point have not yet been, whose names have not yet been released? Yes,
it seems like there's a wide range of individuals whose names cannot be released at this stage, maybe because we've heard in the arguments earlier that certain people have not been served with the right documentation. Usually what happens with the Commission of Inquiry, if someone is implicated, the Commission of Inquiry's legal team would then depose an affidavit or reach out to the implicated individual, letting them know that your name name has been implicated in a particular stream of evidence that's going to be heard as evidence before the Commission of Inquiry, to give them an opportunity to depose their side of the story and to be given an opportunity then to see if whether it is important for them to be called to give evidence, if indeed that particular allegation that is leveled against them is strong enough or deemed to be strong enough for them to require to also testify before the Commission of Inquiry.
What I find quite interesting about what's happening now with the State Capture Commission is we're now hearing intelligence-based evidence. As opposed to, I guess, experiential evidence of those who are directly involved, whether it's, in corporate, in the private sector, or even in the public sector. But this is intelligence-driven evidence. And that has put a different dynamic, I think, to the State Capture Commission so far. Just your thoughts on that? It's
certainly put a very interesting and very difficult dynamic to the State Capture Commission of Inquiry. The State Capture Commission of Inquiry is interested in finding the facts, but now when you're dealing with the intelligence community, and as has been set out by those who have been opposing the various streams of evidence that have been led this week, very vehemently at that, is that the concern is that this particular stream of evidence could have the potential to compromise agents and their operations, agents who are currently operational in the field. There are concerns that those who are coming to give evidence might, by a slip of tongue, mention people and therefore compromise them, and also compromise state security. We know that many of the operations are classified for various reasons, and that there are operations not only centered in South Africa but in the neighboring regions.
Well.
Yes.
But we've seen the Deputy Chief Justice being very cautious about that, and he's been stepping quite carefully, it seems, regarding that. Oftentimes even cautioning, Ms. K herself
not to go too far,
not to reveal the information. But thank you so much, Tumaole.
Thank you very much.
Certainly keeping abreast of the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, which should resume any minute now, in the next 15 minutes or so after their lunch break. Do stay with us. This is your Daytime Update. We'll be right back.